Today I am here and it's Spyro, correct? How you want to be recalled to here? Beautiful.
Yep, that is correct.
Beautiful. And I'm gonna go by John, and we're gonna go ahead and just talk today. Why don't we go ahead and just start off with just a really basic question and just dive into some topics. So you are a full-time, I guess Gwent content creator is probably the most appropriate at the moment. Like streamer,
Pretty much.
Interesting. So, but you obviously you've graduated from university.
Yep.
So tell me a bit about how you went from university into full-time content creation.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So basically, so I live in South Africa, which has a really high unemployment rate. I think it's like 35% right now. So
Really?
It's crazy. It's
35%.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy high. It's pretty bad. So basically, I was for about after university for almost a year. I was essentially looking for work. I did find some part-time writing job, which I was doing. It wasn't really a full-time thing. It was more like just kind of when you can write an article or two every now and then. While I was also looking for a more permanent position, and obviously there's a lot of free time at that point as well because you're applying for jobs. I can't really spend an entire day applying for jobs. Only so much that I can apply for in one day, and then I had a lot of free time left over. So I was also playing Gwent at the time as well, and I was like, yeah, well, I've got so much time left over while I'm applying for jobs and whatnot. I may as well stream some Gwent in between and whatnot. So at first I was kind of just, my typical day would just be like apply for some jobs and then also play some Gwent or stream some Gwent a bit in the afternoon. And from there, it kind of just became more and more full-time, I guess, to the point where it is now, where it basically has become my job, I guess.
That's pretty crazy. So basically, it started out as just probably both a stress relief and a way to just cope with all this job application. Because when you don't have a job, you're just applying. It's basically a full-time job. But there's also so many jobs out there, and then you just kind of turned it into something.
Yeah, pretty much. It just was a lot of like free time that I kind of wanted to try use constructively to do something at least while I'm trying to get something going. It's quite difficult in South Africa, like I said, 35% unemployment rate. It's
so tell me,
I have a BCom honors degree. It's still.
Did you know before going to university that you were going to potentially run into this issue? Was that a given or did it happen?
No, it's pretty much in South Africa. It's kind of a big issue. That's why a lot of people actually the education system in South Africa is actually pretty good, but people what often instance happens, people get their degrees in South Africa because we actually have very good universities and whatnot, and then move countries right after they get their degree. They just move countries to a country where they can actually find work much easier. That's very frequently what ends up happening here.
Was that ever part of your plans? Like it makes sense to me if you're running 35% unemployment, especially you, because usually you used to take the beating.
I mean, I'm always thinking about moving, but it's difficult because a lot of my family, like all my family, is pretty much here. I don't really know too many other people outside of South Africa, so but it is something I'm always thinking about it because, to be honest, I kind of would rather live in another country in South Africa, but at the time being. To be honest, right now it doesn't really matter all that much because I'm just indoors streaming all the time. I guess it doesn't matter whether I'm in South Africa, on the moon. That's pretty much kind of the same thing, but yeah, it is something I definitely always consider or think about at least.
So we talked briefly about before the stream really began. You've done more than just Gwent competitively. So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, I used to play back in the day when since I was 13 or something. I used to play Call of Duty competitively, and it started off as just playing public lobbies and just playing. I mean, I would say at that point it wasn't really competitive, but then at some point there was like Call of Duty World Championships, and there was I believe a spot open for South African team to participate in the World Championship, and then to enter that, you had to be over 18, which I was, but you also had to be on Xbox. And I was playing initially on PlayStation, so I actually went ahead and bought an Xbox specifically so I could play, because the competitive scene at the time was on Xbox.
Yep.
So to actually play like competitively, I was like, okay, right, that's it. I'm gonna play on Xbox from now on. I'm gonna buy an Xbox, and then I'm gonna actually join a team and actually start trying to play somewhat seriously. And then quite quickly after that, a team asked me to join. They were a pretty decent team, and then after that, I believe one of the best teams asked me to join in South Africa, at least not in the world, but in South Africa. And for the whole year that we were playing in that as a team, we made it to the finals in every single tournament we played, which was quite time consuming because Call of Duty is not really a game that you can. It's a team based game, right? So it's not just you it's not just you can play when you're ready. You have to organize your teammates when you want to scrim, when you want to practice, and whatnot. So it's a lot of different moving parts. Like in Gwent, if you want to practice, you can just kind of sit down anytime. You can say, okay, this morning I'm going to practice, tonight I'm going to practice, but it's not that easy when it comes to team-based things. So for the most part, I was playing quite a lot. I was playing like several hours a day, maybe sometimes even more. And yeah, we did perform quite well for the year that we were together. And then after that, that's when I was finishing up my degree, and then after that, I kind of didn't like the direction that Call of Duty went. I was getting at some point things became a bit more too casual oriented for me, and then I'm just playing Gwent casually, and then from there, yeah.
Interesting. So even while you were in college, you were still competing in games at a top level, and so it feels like it's kind of been hand in hand for multiple stages of your life now.
Yeah, funny story. The one time there was a big tournament, and it was a gaming expo, and it took a couple of months to qualify. There was like a whole ladder system to qualify for this tournament. It was called EGC, I believe.
Okay.
And basically, I had a big exam. I had a labor relation exam the following Monday, and this tournament took up the whole weekend. These tournaments are pretty much the entire day. They're quite long. And I remember there was a big gaming expo. I literally took my textbook with me to the venue to go study while in between our games. So like I would literally play a game, and then I'd go outside, sit down outside, and start reading through my textbook to study, because I literally had a massive exam on the Monday after, and I was kind of worried about how I'm gonna fit this all together.
And so you're just like, I'll just merge it together. I'll study in the downtime and try to win this turn.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love that.
Pretty much.
I love that. It's really gone hand in hand, this competitive in everything. You gotta make sure you always have something to chill on. So COD eventually died down. You said it got too casual for you.
Yeah.
And you did not take it casually. I mean, you bought the Xbox, and you're like, you know what?
Yeah, I mean, it was casual in the sense that the game just felt like it just didn't feel the same. It just felt like they were trying to appeal to the mass audiences too much for my liking. It just didn't feel the same competitive. I mean, I know Call of Duty still today is a very big it has a big esports following. It's not, I wouldn't describe it as a casual game, but it just wasn't quite what it was in the past for me, if that makes sense.
Interesting. But you've since then, of course, gone over to Gwent. Do you feel like there's more of a competitive feel for that game right now?
I mean, Gwent, I never initially planned on like playing it competitively. The reason why I first started Gwent was because of The Witcher 3. I'm not really much of a card game player. If you asked me 4 years ago,
really,
if I could picture myself as like a competitive card game player, I would just probably laugh and go, "What? Me? Card game? No, never." But basically, I really like The Witcher 3, and I did like Gwent in The Witcher 3. It was quite fun. The story is pretty similar to most people. I've known a lot of people have said the same thing. I really like Gwent in The Witcher 3, and then I saw them making a standalone game, and I decided to play it a bit. I was most interested just honestly for the lore and the card art, and just playing some Gwent and seeing how it would be in like a full release game. And I don't know. I was mostly playing it just casually in the beginning, and then eventually I started, how do I say it, like climbing ladder quite quickly. I remember the first season I played, and I got to Grand Master, which was the highest rank at the time, and I was like, okay, well, next season, let's see if I can do a bit better. And then, then from there, the competitive nature of me kind of took off, and I kept wanting to, get better and better and better. And then, well, yeah.
Well, then, of course, we end up today, which we'll get to. But a few more questions about that. Were you here for the homecoming shift? That reminds me a bit of that casualness.
Yeah, that was a weird one. So I initially played Gwent on PlayStation 4. I didn't have a PC at the time. I didn't own a PC at the time, so I had no way of playing. And when it came out on Homecoming, it came out on a PC, I think like 2 months before it came out on PlayStation. So I was stuck playing old Gwent on before Homecoming for like 2 months after it was even out on PC. So it was a very weird shift for me. I started streaming as it came out on PlayStation, because that's when I could actually play it, which was already 2 months late. And I had to like relearn the game way behind everyone else, because everyone else had like 2 months to learn. I was sitting here trying to figure out where all the cards go. I can't tell you how many times I was playing cards in the wrong row, like range row ghouls and whatnot, because from before Homecoming, the rows didn't matter at all. No cards were pretty much row locked. So I wasn't used to like going, okay, I have to play this in the melee row, I have to put on the range row, and yeah, it was quite a weird transition.
No, it makes a lot of yeah. For me, it was a weird transition as well. I felt like at that point the game just got simpler, where I missed the siege row because it felt like there's just this opportunity was gone. But you're right, it didn't matter much then where you played stuff, and then when weather would come down, it would slap an entire row and it was just gone. It's like, oh, okay, that was a bummer.
Yeah.
I think, but you stuck with it. A lot of people quit then.
I honestly wasn't I wasn't a huge fan of Homecoming when I first saw it. When I first saw Homecoming, I was quite against it, and I honestly wasn't really sure if I was even going to play Gwent after that. I did play it, and again, I kind of so the first season back in Homecoming, right? I was learning the game, and I was making a lot of mistakes because everyone else had like 2 months to learn the Homecoming, and I was trying to figure it out,
Yeah,
like
because you're behind.
cram it in like a very short amount of time. But I still did perform relatively well on that. I believe I finished. I mean, I finished. I had pretty decent scores. I finished. I think I finished like 30 something on ladder.
Nice.
So once again, I was like, okay, well, I performed relatively well, despite coming back so late. So again, I kind of thought to myself, hey, I did well. Let's see if I can do better next time. And then, like, the competitive nature comes through again. And
Yeah, and you
know.
strike me as a very competitive person, right? Even when you're like, school, I can do that with pro Call of Duty. It's like 2 months behind in Gwent, I'll figure it out anyways. Honestly, I think for me, the idea of you saying, you know, I have a PlayStation 4, but I need an Xbox 360. I'm just gonna buy that so I can play the exact same game just so I can be competitive, just so I can
I mean,
school some kids.
It was actually it wasn't 360. It was actually an Xbox One. I initially bought a PlayStation 4, and then after that, I was also kind of like, well, the competitive scene is on Xbox, and then I bought the Xbox just for just the Xbox. The only thing it did was play Call of Duty. I didn't use it for anything else. That's all it did.
Really?
And then after that, the Call of Duty scene moved back to PlayStation, which is hilarious. A year later, it
Weird.
deals with Sony or whatever, moved back. So then I sold the Xbox and moved back to PlayStation, which was quite funny.
Is there any crossplay there, or is that not a thing?
There is now, I think, but not back then.
Okay, it kind of explains why you had to keep hopping. Wherever all the good players were gathering, it's like, well, gotta shift over there. Almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, oh, if everyone agrees it's PlayStation, it's gonna be PlayStation. If everybody agrees, it's gonna be Xbox. Xbox.
It's not even because of the agreement. It was just it's because I think there were exclusivities between like Microsoft and Activision, and then between Sony and Activision. Because of that, all the pro players play on so and so console, and then it trickles down, right? If all the pro players play on this console, then everyone else kind of gravitates towards that console, and, you know.
That makes sense. It makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about Gwent. Actually, probably not a little bit, because it's become this constant in your life. Talking about basically Gwent consumes content creation specifically, not just streaming, which I feel people always associate with streaming Gwent. And no surprise, you're the #1. I checked like over the past 365 days, you've streamed the most Gwent out of anyone on the planet on Twitch. Yeah. Period. Which is insane. But you do a lot for Gwent. So let's just and then start just kind of breaking it down here. Let's talk about the competition, because that's an ongoing theme here. You constantly are a top 64 player on the ladder, constantly qualify for the different qualifiers. Do you have a ambition for the competitive side? Is that just like an outcome that's coming from the competitive? Is it the goal? Tell me about that. How's it fit in?
I would obviously like to qualify for an open or some kind of major tournament would be nice. I mean, I wouldn't say like that's the drive. Like, to me, the stream part of things is probably more important, especially considering it's like my job at the point. But that is kind of like a small goal that I keep in mind. But at the same time, it's not my main goal. My main goal is to keep streaming, keep growing the channel, and try and make things as how do I say it, sustainable as possible. Because it's not exactly an easy environment to be sustainable in. I guess you could say it's definitely a very volatile environment for sure.
The ruthless one. From what I can tell, it's just the biggest streamers take it all, and then everybody else dies. But of course, gotta be a bit. Well, let me ask a couple questions. First, is South Africa's unemployment rate still the same kind of deal? So if this fell apart, would you find yourself still in that same predicament?
I mean, I have alternative options, should I say? I do have family that do own businesses and whatnot, and they've even offered to try to set something up for me, but I keep declining because I kind of want to do my own thing, and I want to have grandfather say, okay, you're gonna take over this business or whatever. It's not really what I want to do. But I'd rather make it my own way and try to figure out what I want to do, because it just doesn't really quite sit well with me just one day just taking over some random person, well, not random person, but some business, and saying, okay, yeah, now it's time for you to take over, and if you enjoy it or not, that doesn't matter.
Wait, so let me ask you then a further follow-up question. Do you think it's because you like the freedom that comes with streaming? Because also I know behind the scenes everyone's like, oh, you sit there and play video games, but it's very restrictive. It's a lot of time. Or do you think it's that competitive drive kind of kicking in there?
I think I like having something that you can like. I don't really like the idea of working for someone else, because all the work you put in is kind of growing that person's business or that person's. You're not really doing much for yourself. You're getting a salary, but you're kind of you're settling for a constant. You're not really going further. You're not really going.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously are career paths and ways to advance your career and whatnot, but it doesn't. I don't like the idea of working for other people. I kind of like. I probably would be fine if I owned my own business, which is obviously there are other challenges with that. But I do like the idea of being self-sufficient and having your own control over things and how you do in life.
Yeah, and it sounds like you also like, and I can relate to that. So I used to be in the corporate world. I quit and said, I'm going to figure out my own path and see if I can kind of do it. Because when you're going on your own, you reap the punishment, but you also reap the rewards.
Yeah, it's definitely risky, that's for sure.
No, I like the feel though. It's a fun environment where it's like, if it goes poorly, fine, you pick yourself back up. I mean, you'd fall back. You have commerce degree. You could go to a different country. You could go work for family, but
I do have a Portuguese passport as well, because I'm half Portuguese, half Greek by heritage. So I have a Portuguese passport. So at least I have a European passport that's been like kind of going in, because I'm not gonna lie, if you have a South African passport, doesn't get you very far when you try like apply for visas or whatnot in other countries, because they kind of don't really have a high regard for South African passports. Luckily, I got a Portuguese passport, which makes it much easier for me to actually maneuver around countries if I wanted to.
Yeah, so you have a bunch of options, but I like that. I think it says a lot that you pick the risky one, that it's blazing your own trail. It's not working for your family, not hopping to a different country. It's just like, you know what? This works as competitiveness. And Gwent, but now it's really almost like, if I'm correct in saying, it's almost evolved to a competitiveness in content creation to an extent. Because you truly...
I mean, there's also the competitive nature in like streaming and whatnot as well. It's another layer, I guess, of competitive nature.
Well, do you feel like you've won Gwent for just the streaming? I want to talk more about all the other stuff you do as well, but you are the biggest Gwent streamer. I mean, Life Coach shows up, but it's like Life Coach has a... Do you think your ambition, now you've kind of conquered the Gwent streaming, is the goal to grow Gwent? Is the goal to stream other games? Because I know you're also interested in, was it Zero? Is it Horizon Zero Dawn?
I do. So I'm definitely I definitely do like streaming. I do actually enjoy other games as well, even though I'm competitive. I really do. My whole life I've been playing games. I play a lot of different games actually. Not recently, not as much. Since the start of streaming, I've actually played a very little other games, way less than I would like. I used to play all kinds of different games. Nowadays, not as much, but I do really enjoy playing other games for sure. Obviously, it's very difficult to juggle that and stream Gwent at the same time. I did recently like stream Resident Evil, went through a playthrough on that, and I do want to be able to stream other games as well, just for like a fun type of thing.
Yep.
But at the same time, that's kind of always how I work. I have like one main competitive game, and then I play other games on the side. So right now, Gwent is that competitive game, and then obviously I do also want to at times, like, just for the fun of it, stream, maybe Horizon Zero Dawn, or maybe the new God of War whenever that comes out or whatnot.
That makes sense. It's tough balance though, because I know when I've streamed other games, it's like your viewership halves immediately, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of have that constant pullback to like, wow, I've built my identity on Gwent. I mean, I know I have anyways. And you're very popular Gwent, obviously. When you must go to other games, you're like, okay, I have to balance it, where it's a lot of fun to play these other games. And there's tons of great games coming out, but half my audience isn't here anymore. Like, it's tough.
Yeah, that's why it would be really nice to be one of those like massive streamers with like 1 million followers that can stream whatever game they want.
Oh my gosh,
and no one cares. But yeah, that's quite an ambitious goal to have. But yeah, I mean, I obviously, as you mentioned, you're streaming other games. Obviously, if you build your main like focus on one game, then it's kind of hard to like pull your audience with to watch this game. Some people, obviously, there are a certain percentage of people that do enjoy watching your content regardless, and they will watch if you play this or that game. Which is why that's why also I don't stream other games for the sake of streaming other games. It has to be a game that I'm very interested in and a game that I would like to share, like a playthrough with everyone, so that it doesn't feel like I'm just kind of just streaming other games just for the sake of streaming other games, but just so that it gives people an option to see a different side of the stream, like a different,
Yeah, like a
non-competitive side, but a more fun, casual, just enjoy a game together kind of vibe.
I've always viewed it when I stream another game, it's almost a community time, right? There's all the people there for the Gwent, but the people who watch me do any other game are there for me, right? They don't know the other game. But if they're there, then hey, these are the people I want to chill with, chat with. They're gonna follow me wherever.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sick. Let's see. So one thing I want to ask about is that competitive mindset. How do you balance it? Because it's got to be stressful. Like the streaming life, I think people think it's this, roses everywhere. We get to, you play video games all day, but in reality, it's non-stop. You wake up, you work, you sleep, and it's a cycle.
Yeah.
Fun hour to yourself.
It's not easy. It's definitely something that's not many people, I think, are quite. How do I say it? I'm geared to it's not. It takes a lot from you. You really have to, depending on how competitive you want to be. Obviously, there are far better players than me as well, which probably take it even a step further. But generally speaking, if you want to be at the top of something, you really have to dedicate quite a lot to be there. And for the most part, you got to make a lot of compromise in your life to do that. And I don't quite think the majority of people are going to be quite comfortable with making those kind of compromises. And I think that's kind of how it goes. It's not really easy to balance. It's really hard to balance all these different things together. Have a normal outside life, be able to stream Gwent or compete in Gwent, and then make a video or do this or do that. It's definitely something that's not easy to do.
Yeah, I think I feel like that's the thing that's lost on people, because there's a point where you say, okay, oh, I'm really good at a game, let's go play it, but I imagine you're probably putting 60, 70, 80 hours a week minimum, and then you have to say, oh, do I want to work on my friendships, family relationships, or do I want to work on content? And all of a sudden you start to realize, oh, I'm not making progress. The only way I'm going to make progress is crank up the hours in the content creation. What else is going to give, right? Well, I have to say, man, maybe I won't be as close friends with some of my, friends. Maybe I won't be able to attend every single event in my family's life. Yeah, you have to make these choices, and they're not like I work a job, go home, and then I get to, this is the time I'm allotted. It's just oh, if I want to be successful, I have to make more sacrifices.
That's the thing. It's not like a 9-to-5 job, right? You don't just, it's not something that you just go, okay, I mean, obviously people see from the streaming side of things that I kind of stream a certain amount of hours and that's it. But quite often there's more to that than that. There's obviously you got to make YouTube videos. Obviously there's also scrimming with teammates, preparing for tournaments. Preparing for tournaments actually takes a lot of time sometimes. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes as well that takes up additional time. So it's definitely something that's not easy to do for sure, and it's also then it also takes up your weekends as well. It's not like another normal job where you kind of have the weekend off. It's not exactly a strict work for this amount of hours and then have fun afterwards kind of thing.
Yeah, because it goes back to that risk reward. Every downside is yours. You own every upside though. So if things aren't going as planned, you got to put more time in. But the benefit is, of course, you get that reward. So if you work the extra hours on the weekend, it's yours. Now, with that said, do you mind asking, if you don't mind me asking, how many hours do you work a week? Or even a day?
A good question. So 6 hours of streaming a day, that's always guaranteed. Sometimes way more. Okay, I mean, but there's always, I'm very often doing casting events and whatnot. Those typically force me to go overtime. Recently I was casting Team All the Blood events that was 8-ish hour streams for the last 3 days. On average, I would say it's probably 45-ish hours, 44-ish. I don't know, something like that, hours of streaming, and then making a YouTube video probably going to take another an hour and a half or 2 hours sometimes, depending on what the video is. Don't make videos all that often. Although I probably should, but it's so exhausting. I think to stream and then go, okay, now to make a video. But obviously some days I make a video, and then there's also the fact of when there's tournaments, there's preparing decks, practicing the decks, and whatnot. So all I would probably estimate it's close-ish to like 60-ish hours, close to 60 hours a week. Spent in this kind of stuff, I would say.
That's a lot. And I think where a lot of people are sit there like, oh man, 50 hours. My work job asked me to work overtime, and it's like, oh yeah, 60 getting baseline, and then of course there's the overtime. And you mentioned casting, which I think is a really fascinating part about content, where you do everything. And I think it's mind-blowing how much you do for the community. So what got you into casting? Is it that, hey, competition, might as well stay? Or tell me more.
I actually, first time I casted an event was back in the Call of Duty days as well. So
Really?
I was a competitor. Yeah, obviously I was a competitor, and there was a tournament going on. Now our team already qualified for the tournament. We were already qualified, but there were other teams competing to obviously get other spots in like the big finals event. And I remember there's an ISP in South Africa. Their name was MWeb. They had like a division specifically for esports.
Okay.
And one of their one like the not how do I say it, not the owner, the head of that division, he's a very good caster. He casts events and whatnot, and then one day he invited me to drive down to the MWeb head office. And then I would join him as like a guest caster or whatever to join him, because obviously he wasn't a competitive player. I had like competitive insight, I guess.
Right, so he could color commentate, bring that analysis.
So he was like doing that. He was doing like the main casting. I was just there as like, kind of joining him and answering some questions and like being like a little just like a consultant almost. But yeah, that was the first time I actually casted, and I actually really enjoyed it. And then in Gwent, there's obviously qualifiers and whatnot, and sometimes I get eliminated from the qualifiers. So then I go, okay, well, time to cast, because I mean I kind of want to watch like if I'm in a tournament or whatnot, I'm also interested in the gameplay. I want to watch it, and also if I'm going to be watching other people play, I kind of, it's a bit boring if I just sit there and quietly watch. So I thought, I mean, if I'm going to be watching the tournament, everyone's here to see the tournament, I'm going to cast it. Let's try it, cast it, and I don't know, people seem to enjoy the casting, so I kept kind of doing it. And for the most part, for the last like year, there weren't like any official casts or whatnot. There weren't like any official casts or whatnot. So for the most part, I was one of the few people actually giving actual casting for these like qualifiers and whatnot, because no one else really was.
Yep. And when you refer to that, are you talking about Call of Duty, or at this point you've shifted over to Gwent? When you're saying,
I shifted over to Gwent, but yeah, in Call of Duty was the first time I actually ever cast something.
Yeah, but then later on you
that kind of gave me the idea to like try it as well. Because I mean, it didn't seem too difficult to do. I thought, I mean, I know about the game. I should know how to speak well enough, so I'll try casting, see how it goes.
Envy that a little bit. My speaking is never good. That's always yelling at me, or I'm like, what do you mean this is wrong? How do you want me to spell? It's like they're all spamming it. But no, and you add that, you bring that competitive bit, and you don't just cast like alt cast for qualifiers or just casting qualifiers for real. You also cast all these other smaller tournaments as well as different teams put together. You are essential to all of that, which I think is incredible. But also,
yeah, I mean,
please.
I mean, I do enjoy casting. It's also nice. Sometimes I actually do enjoy, like, it gives me like a little bit of a break almost from ladder, because casting is a much more relaxed environment than competing on ladder and whatnot, because when you're obviously playing for spots on ladder and whatever, it's a bit stressful. You want to do well, you want to win. And doing that for like 6 hours a day is it is like a very stressful environment. Like it's always constant, like compete. Every now and then it is nice to like kind of watch others compete and say, okay, let's watch them, and we can also still learn something, because by watching other good players play, you also learn yourself, and so you don't feel like you're wasting time or anything, and you also just get like a little bit of a break, which is like a constructive break, if that makes sense, which I like.
It makes sense. And then it's just got to feel very different. So in a sense, do you find when you're streaming, casting, do you still find that you're a very competitive person whilst competing against the other casters, or trying to perform, or do you feel like it's really like a shut off and watch kind of?
I mean, the reason why I like casting as well, because I know that not to sound bad about anyone in particular, but the thing is that I obviously play the game at a relatively high level, so I can bring a certain amount of insight to the casting. That sometimes when you watch tournaments, whatnot, sometimes people don't pick up on some small things, and especially when like I practice. So there'll be a lot of times where I practice certain lines of play, and like we scrim and you play again, then okay, in round one this needs to happen, or this needs to happen, and if your opponent does this can happen, this can you practice these lines, and some very small things can kind of get lost sometimes if people aren't quite aware of it, which is why I kind of like the idea of being able to give like a more pro-casting type of insight into events, which I know a lot of people have asked me a lot of times to cast over like opens or whatnot, just so they can have like a more like sometimes insightful view over some of these events. But yeah, I do enjoy it. It's fun. I like casting, especially as it gives me a bit of a break sometimes from actually playing ladder.
Sure, but it doesn't give me a break from all the work you're putting on everything else. But it does. Hopefully, it sounds like it lets you turn down the pressure just a touch. So at least you're not the one having to think, okay, what are my 18 lines of play? Rather, you could just point out like this is the line of play they took because they're afraid of this card. They've seen these two plays from their opponent, indicating they might not have these. That's awesome.
Pretty much, exactly.
So let me ask about another piece of content you do, which I'm curious about, which is Vinyl, if I'm saying that right. Which is the TLG.
Vinyl, yeah.
You're involved in this. Like basically, it looked like. Please.
Yeah, it's basically like a group effort between like everyone. There's a lot of people behind. Like the whole team is pretty much behind it. Obviously, I am the co-host with Jagras. In the podcast section, there's a lot of different other sections. Obviously, there's going to be the coaching sessions. That's going to be different, like team member every week. There is there's quote unquote cup casting events happening there. There's a lot of different things. There's obviously like casting events in general happening there. There's a lot of different things involved. I mean, you have people like Wellmax is behind the scenes, doing all the like all the visuals and running the streams and whatnot. And then you also have Shadow, who's also behind the scenes trying to organize everything and organize the guests and whatnot. So it's a big team effort, I would say, between like the whole of TLG. And obviously, I have my part in aspects of it, but yeah, it's definitely a team effort, I would say.
Nice. So in Swinal is this effectively almost like a podcast. It's on YouTube for people who are not aware of it. But you sit down with Jagras and usually one or two other guests, talk about Gwent, the future of the game, competitive, cover it all. But I thought it was really cool because for me it felt like it was kind of feeling niche, or the niche where there wasn't a ton of esports content. I feel like esports is in Gwent one of those things that's kind of sneaking under the radar. Like everyone knows it's there, but I don't think everyone's like, oh, this is gonna be the World's Masters, or this is gonna be this qualifier for this month. And you come in, you have this it's like an hour long of you, Jagras, and two other guests just kind of talking about Gwent and often the esports side as well. Do you think that the esports side of Gwent needs more content, or do you think it's like at a good place?
I always want more content for the esports side. I mean, I would really love one of the things that I've been wishing for in Gwent is if there was like in game, if there was like a little window that when there's an open, there'll be a little window there that has like an embedded video feed of the open, and then also maybe a way to like watch players say, okay, you know what, who's playing on ladder right now? Like a window you can actually spectate people easily, and like also if like qualifiers and stuff was also advertised in Gwent on the welcome screen. You could like click on a little window and watch the qualifiers in game and stuff. I really wish there was more ways for like I feel like there's a big divide between casual audience and pro player audience and like competitive or pro player scene. I feel like there's a really big divide there because and I wish there was ways that they would. And I know this is something that was also debated about. I remember a lot of topics about in Call of Duty days where pro players people would be against, like in Call of Duty days, some rule sets would be altered to say no, you can't use this gun, you can't do this, you can't use this gun. And a lot of players there was a lot of controversy. People would say if you make different rule sets than what people are playing on like ranked play and whatever, then you're going to cause a divide with the way people, like casual audience, is going to feel disconnected and not. It's better to have the same rule set being applied throughout the casual scene and the pro scene to make it more easy to understand and more easy to follow for like casual audience. And it's something that's trying to like bridge that divide, I think, is something that Gwent. I don't know. To me, it seemed like there's a very big distance between like a typical, like, let's say ranked 25 players playing every like other weekend or playing casually, and like people that obviously play the game every day. It seems like a very big gap between the two.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think it's so I'll be honest, when I sat down and said, okay, I'm gonna interview Spyro, like I know competitive Gwent's a huge part of your content and what you do. Of course, there's a lot else we've covered so far. But I had to sit there and say, okay, how does this really work? Like I know some of the players' names that are really good that people say. But I had to sit there and try to piece together a system. And I thought for me personally, a system was pretty crazy. It was like, okay, I got qualifiers, which get me the opens, which eventually gets me to the World Masters, and you can qualify the World Masters, also have crown points. That explains why every time I go to see the pro rankings, I have these pro rankings and these magical crown points, and they're totally different every season. I'm like, what is this? And then of course, none of it's in the game, right? You log in, it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
it would help.
okay.
It would really help if it was. They should really just add like a learn more button on the just at the bottom of Pro Ladder, like just somewhere there, just like a learn more button in game you can click on and just read about it and just have like an overview summary of how it all works. Because I think it would actually help a lot, probably.
Yeah, I would also
really help a lot.
Yeah, I wish there was also a way to have like MMR for factions be like once you have the pro rank, the entire game is different, and I love it. And I always try to make sure I get the pro rank every season because all of a sudden ladder gets very different. But if you're a casual player, like, oh, ladder, I pick my favorite faction, I pick the best deck, and I grind. Hit pro ladder, you enter this much more interesting, complex place. And then once you get pro rank, it gets even more complex. And it feels like it's always barrier after barrier. You have to start climbing your way up, and then you magically might stumble onto the side and how deep it can get, which is so, like, it's the game at its finest, but, oh, it feels hidden. Secret.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's kind of a strange one. Like it's a lot of people also they play when they join Pro, they're not really interested in the competitive scenes. They kind of just like meme around and play one faction anyway. So it's also kind of strange when you have like the whole like environment mixed together, and the only thing that separates them is AMR. But I mean, even then you can have like higher ranked people queuing against lower ranked people. It sometimes happens. And matchmaking can be kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, it would definitely help, as you mentioned, if they had some kind of way to make it easier for people to learn. Because I do agree, it's obvious to people like me and whatnot. We understand it sounds simple because you know how it works. Once you know how it works and you get it, it's all fine. But the problem is, not everyone is going to go ahead and like look up and research and figure this kind of stuff out. They're just kind of going to go, I'm just going to play the game and whatever. But it would help if they could like read about it and go, oh, so that's what this qualify. Because like you know, if you go on Twitch and you see someone stream title going qualifier blah top 64 qualifier blah blah, and if you're a casual player, you're gonna go, what's that? What does that mean? What is top 64 qualifier? Hey? But it would help if you go, oh, top 64 qualifier is that thing I read about means the top 64 players are going to invite it to this thing, and then someone who's casual going to go, oh, that's cool. I'm going to watch that stream because I want to see the top 64 players, play out and how it works and whatnot. Because if you know about it, then you're more interested in following it. For example,
100%. I also think there are so many great personalities and players that do qualify. For it, it'd be cool if there was a way to really like track it. Because when everyone's streaming it, it's just like big event and it stops. But if I could just if there were ways to keep following players the whole way through, I also think it would help streaming content and also encourage more people to stream and get involved in content creation. There's more of an interconnection, because normally it's like, oh, when I go to Twitch and I click in and it's, oh, everyone's streaming qualifiers. I'm like, oh, qualifiers are today? Cool. I didn't know it was today. I don't know who's in it. I'm just gonna find out from looking at the top streams, like, oh, Spyro made it, Specimen Gwent made it, etc., etc. But I find that divide to be frustrating. I had to learn it by researching it and going out of my way. I'm like, there's a whole separate website for it, and
yeah, I can't really talk from perspective of like I've always been following this kind of stuff closely, so I've kind of understood it from the get-go. So I'm not exactly sure the experience, but I could definitely understand how it could be quite confusing. Like it's definitely not a. I mean, they do like at least in open and stuff, like a little trailer that shows how it all works. But man, there really should be an in-game button that just says "Learn More." That would really help.
Yeah, no, 100%, or even just a notification saying, "Oh, today is the day. We have all these streams going on. Check it out." At least on the Play Gwent website, they have the streamer list of here's a bunch of people currently streaming Gwent if you want to take a look. But
yeah, I mean that's kind of I mean most games have it. It's pretty much, I would say it's the
low bar. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a low bar. I like so I'm back in the day was a huge League of Legends fan. And I always appreciated that when the LCS was on, which is that League Championship Series, the esports side of things, you log in, boom, notification, here's the match going on, you click it, you're going to immediately see that match being fully casted. That would think would help. I would like something like that to be able to say, oh, top 64 qualifiers, here are the 4 players that are really popular that people probably want to tune into. Here are the direct links to see them play. Click, off you go. At least that would help bridge it a little bit. Lower that barrier.
It would help a lot. It definitely would be nice to have something like that.
Yeah, I do worry about the card games in esports, because I know Magic the Gathering, right? This huge game is basically gutting their entire esports scene. slowly but surely. So I'm watching them dial back their investment. I wonder about that or Legends of Runeterra. I'm not sure it'll, because I wonder if the barriers of entry to card games are just so high. You need to toss down the money and get the cards. If that ever
Yeah, I mean,
hurts the esport.
I mean that's kind of what killed Artifact, isn't it? The monetization model. So it is definitely something that you got to be careful because from everything I hear, apparently Artifact. I mean, I didn't play Artifact. I don't know much about Artifact, but from what I keep hearing is that Artifact was actually a really good game, but the monetization model killed it. Apparently.
Yeah,
so,
I was so excited about it because I love card games. For me, my reaction time is terrible. I could never do a shooter. And like Overwatch, it's just kind of like shooter of choice. It's already pretty casual. Relative to some of the other stuff out there. I'm like in bottom 8% of tank players. I'm a terrible shooter player. I always feel like I'm doing a good job, and then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, based on your rank, you're absolute garbage. I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm like, all right, I feel like I'm doing good, and then I feel like the result's bad. So there's a huge disconnect with my feeling and actually how I'm doing. But Overwatch, wait, where are we going with this one? Here goes the train of thought. I'm like, oh yes, I'm really bad at Overwatch, and then my mind's just like, full stop. Not where we're supposed to stop. Monetization.
I guess Overwatch. Yes.
But for card games, I like paying attention to new ones. Like I actually just found Gwent for Gwent. I haven't actually read many, if any of them. I've read like a book of The Witcher or two after I found Gwent. I've not played the Witcher games, just found Gwent. And I feel like one of the benefits it was so generous, but then Artifact was super interested. They're bringing Richard Garfield, right? He was the guy who built this entire genre of games, and then monetization was garbage. To the point where I believe it's just free to play now. You just get all the cards. They're just like, wow, we ran this into the ground. Nobody's interested, so we'll give it away for free because that's it. We're done. We failed. Which makes me want to play.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know all that much about other card games because I have not played any other. The only other card game I've ever played pretty much is Yu-Gi-Oh, but that was when I was in school. I played the physical card games.
Oh yeah, you gotta duel. You gotta get your Blue Eyes White Dragons back in the day. They weren't good, but I like them anyways.
That's the only other card game. Other than that, I'm actually quite a noob when it comes to card games.
Interesting. But yeah, you found your attachment here. Do you think in the future you'll find other competitive games you'll hop to?
I have no idea. Every time I thought, if you asked me 4 years ago the same question, I would probably said no. If you asked me 4 years before that, it's kind of, I don't think I don't think I'll ever be able to see further than that. I have no idea. Maybe we'll have to see. But for now, I mean, like I said, I did like the core concept of Gwent, the three round system, the turn by turn play. That type of feel is, I think, quite from what I know, quite unique. Other card games with mana based system, and they don't really have. Gwent's obviously very different than the others, which I like quite a lot about it.
Me too. I think the lack of mana is what I think one of the things that's key to me, because I get my hand the cards like, okay, they're all options, right? In Magic the Gathering, right, any mana based systems like, oh, I don't have the mana to play this card. It's not even worth considering. My options usually, do I play 1 or 2 cards or pass, right? And Gwent, you're like, here's all your cards. You can play your best card right now if you want to. But you do have to win 2 out of 3 rounds. And it just creates so many options, so much possibility. Feels super fresh.
Yeah. Like I said, I can't really comment on how it feels compared to other card games because I've never really played many other card games, so it's hard for me to. People always ask me like, what do you think about this compared to that? And I'm just like, I don't know. I never played that game, so I never played Runeterra. Well, actually, I played a very, very small amount of Runeterra, hardly any, but basically just finished the tutorial, but that's about it.
So funny. I did the same thing. I got to the end of the tutorial. I'm like, you know what? It ain't Gwent. Because I felt like I was always sitting there waiting for something to happen. But at the end of the tutorial, I'm like, all right, well, I could just go back to Gwent where I'm.
My issues. I look at the deck build. I want to read through the cards and like start like trying to build decks and start to do stuff, and then I realize, oh look, everything's locked because I'm a new player, and it's like, you'd have to like spend a lot of money, which I don't want to do, or I got to spend a lot of time, which I can't do, or I can't experiment and try build decks. I'm stuck with the starter deck, and the starter deck is kind of boring. So yeah,
and that I find that to be the frustration with. That's one of the things I guess that worries me about Gwent in the long run in terms of its growth is a lot of it's super generous. It sounds like they're making stuff with the new starter decks, even though the debacle released them in the wrong way or implied they were releasing them the wrong way. Have you seen the starter decks? They're like,
What I mean, the
Like-
new overpowered ones I saw.
Yeah.
I saw not overpowered, but I saw they were like released new ones that look quite ridiculously good for starter decks.
yeah, well, I was really excited about that because for me, the biggest barrier to any card game is, hey, you can't play with all the good cards. There's a point where it's just like, oh, they have Blood Eagle and I don't. And we're both running Warriors decks and I would like a copy. Or they have Ice and I don't. And I don't want to give them $35 to buy all the leaders. So I was really excited to see that because I feel like that's key for growing Gwent. It's just like some of the best cards of any card game is sitting there, get your collection of 500 cards, and you stare at them saying, I need every point I can get. I don't know what I need to do. I have all these options. Just put it together in my own way, and off we go. I worry about. I just like the block.
I did make I actually made 2 accounts in Gwent. My first started on PlayStation. I then eventually bought a PC because streaming on console was a nightmare because Gwent was a mess on console. It would crash all the time on console.
They
the
removed
problem
it
is,
now, right?
not only yeah, now I'm on PC. Well, now I have a PC and everything. But back in the day when I was streaming on PlayStation, I was streaming directly from the PlayStation, which is a horrible experience. Would not recommend. 2 out of 10. But basically, what would happen is the game would crash very frequently, and when the game crashes, not only does the game crash and you lose the game, which you shouldn't lose, but your stream also goes down. If the game crashes, your stream goes down as well. In on PlayStation, I was getting really tired of that, so I bought a laptop. I first tried to buy the most budget laptop I could. I was like, what is the most budget laptop that can still handle a stream? And well, I actually still have that laptop over here.
Do you? That's awesome. Let's see what was your poison of choice, so to speak.
This was the laptop. I used to stream a little bit on this thing.
Nice, simple, straightforward. Looks good.
On this laptop, some Asus thingy. This was the laptop I streamed on.
Uh-huh.
And well, this thing wasn't really that great at streaming either. It did its job, but it was quite it struggled, and also the screen's not broken as well. And then eventually I bought an actual desktop PC. But now I'm also forgetting my line of thought. Where was I going with this? Oh yes, so I started a new account for PC, and I started from the very bottom. And it wasn't. I didn't find that hard to like. So what I did was I just scrapped. I don't know if you can still do this, but I just scrapped all the current cards, or a lot of the current current factions. I go, okay, what's the best deck I'm gonna play to like get my account back or to build up? Okay, the best deck is this deck. I'm gonna scrap all the cards from all the other decks. I'm gonna build one meta deck. I'm gonna climb with that meta deck. I'm gonna get to pro ladder, and then by the time I get to pro ladder, I'll have enough scraps to build 2 meta decks, and then I play another week, and then I could build a 3rd deck and a 4th deck. And if you know what you're doing and you play enough. You can build decks quite quickly. Like once you have like 3 solid decks or something, then you're pretty set. You're good to go. But I don't know. I'm not sure if it's still like that nowadays. I know things have changed a lot in Gwent, but that was about 2 years ago. But I didn't find it too difficult to start a new account. It was actually pretty easy.
I think
if you know what you're doing, I guess.
Yeah, if you know what you're doing. They got rid of the ability, I think, to scrap the starter cards, but in return, there's so many random reward points they give you early on that you can quickly start getting story node after story node, get the ore you need. Then you just buy a bunch of cakes, scrap all those. So I wonder if the strategy is harder to do now, because now it's still like every month new patch.
It's a big learning curve every month, and new patch for a lot of players as well. I'm not sure how I love it. I don't know how much the casual audience loves it, but I definitely like quite frequent changes.
Oh man,
I don't know how much. I don't know how much casual audience likes that though.
I don't know. I love it, and the fact that, like, if I ever get that tunnel, the patch where they just gave tunnel drill one more provision made me so bitter, because I'm looking here. I've been playing Dealing with Line Pockets this whole month, right? I'm more of a meme player myself. I like experimenting, goofing off, get the pro rank, and then just, off you go, play whatever you want. And then when they gave that nerf for just one provision, it's like, oh, it's a 5 point for 7. This is gonna break the game. I was so bitter that month because I was just like, oh my gosh, same thing again.
Yeah, I mean, in their defense though, sometimes nerfing a card by one provision has, like, there have been many times in Gwent where, like, there have been cards that have been like really, really strong, and they nerf it by a provision or a point, and the card just ceases to exist. So I think they were probably with the mindset of they were gonna do like incrementally. They're gonna see what happens at 7, and then they might tweak it further. I guess that was the mindset. And then go on from there. That was probably what the idea was. To be honest, a lot of the time cards get, like, there are a lot of cards in Gwent that were also at one point in time very overpowered. and the game has power crept past into the point where these cards that haven't even been changed just don't see play anymore. Or some cards that did get changed, and then if you look back and you think to yourself, if this card stayed the way it was when it first came out, would it see play? And the answer would be absolutely not, because
Yes.
cards just get so strong after. I'm almost certain if Tunnel Draw stays the way it is now, in a few months from now, we'll look back at Tunnel Draw and go, and the card will be, and we'll be like, wow, this card's so bad now.
Yeah, no, there's definitely been power
Because
creep, and then they buffed all the stratagems, I think, to try to help with that, right? No more random poison. You put the poison where you want. Now they have an offensive and ceremonial dagger, but that's all right.
Yeah.
What do you think, by the way?
I really like that.
Wait, what'd you say?
No, sorry, you cut off for a second. What was the question?
Oh, I was just about to ask you, have you seen the new, it's oddly specific, but I saw it today. Have you seen the 2 Nilfgaard spoilers from today?
Yeah, those cards look insanely good.
Oh my gosh, they're nuts. The chat was like, "What do you think, John?" I'm like, "These are the best cards. They're by far like every Nilfgaard deck." And okay, now I'm not nearly as good at this game as you.
No, it is auto include. It is auto include. It is. Here's the thing, though.
Oh my gosh,
I heard rumors. Apparently, I mean, I don't want to spread Reddit rumors because. Yeah. But apparently, according to my chat, according to Reddit, now we're saying we're going from one accordance to the other.
Okay.
According to Reddit, according to chat, apparently the Guardian is apparently going down to 1 strength, which would make this card only a 9 for 5, which is still really good with 1 thinning. It would be a buff to Cynthia, would make Cynthia pretty crazy, because now Cynthia puts a 1-point golem, which is kind of annoying because I would really like cloggers not to get buffed further. But that being said, here's the thing. I don't mind cards like this because, in my opinion, and it's opinion of a lot of competitive players and pro players, that bronze cards in Gwent are too weak compared to gold cards. If you think about a gold card, a lot of times gold cards are playing for like 20 plus points. Look at Ice, you look at Faltus, Brewer, blah blah. There's a lot of gold cards that are playing for crazy amounts of points, 20 plus points, and then a lot of bronze cards are only playing for like 6-7 points. So the discrepancy between the difference between drawing that 1 gold card and missing that gold card and being stuck with bronze cards, you have to draw like 3 bronze cards to make up the value of 1 gold card, which is crazy. Which makes the game feel very draw dependent. Which is why I really wish bronze cards were more important. They had more value in a deck. They were closer to strength than the gold cards. So, in my opinion, the card the way it is now at 11 for 5, I like it because I wish more bronze cards are like that. I wish bronze cards were all playing for that kind of value, and that way it would be much closer to gold card value, which I think would be more fair.
That makes a lot of sense. It would also, interestingly enough, drive down the abundance of stuff like Maxi or Neuromancy, because you wouldn't need to make sure you get all your gold cards by the end. Your deck's all bronze. Because if you hit a bronze card, you miss a gold, okay, you miss a point or two, but you could put in better stuff deck as a result. So Maxi or Neuromancy are still really good cards. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said. I think that bronze cards, if you look at beginning of Homecoming, gold cards, there was a provision curve, and the curve was much steeper in the slower provision slot, and towards the high end, they started flattening out. Gold cards were playing for under their provision value, and bronze cards are playing for a little bit over the provision value. Nowadays, that curve has changed a lot. Now gold cards are playing for crazy amounts of points, and and bronze cards are still playing for relatively similar-ish amounts of points, which I think is something that needs to be addressed at some point in Gwent. So when I see bronze cards like this, initially everyone goes, "Oh, that's busted. Must nerf it. Too strong." I'm of the opinion that no, make all bronze cards like that. Leave this card the way it is. Make the other bronze cards this good, and then that's fine.
I kind of like that take, personally, because you're right. It would make everything a little less draw dependent, a lot more. Hey, here's a unique, interesting bronze card. Does this. Now I have all these unique, more interesting cards than just play a bronze card and you get my 6, 7, 8 points. Okay. Now it's like, okay, I have all these more interesting bronze cards. Gold cards are a little, less dependent on how can I play out this hand with more interesting interactions and such. Like, you're right, actually. What's it called? Blight something, Bobber? Finder something, Blight Keeper. Like, that's an interesting card. It's a strong card. Also going to spawn poison.
Exactly, but it's a strong card for sure. It's very strong. It's definitely right. I kind of agree. It is broken, but it's broken because other bronze cards are too weak. But make the other bronze cards better, and then it's not broken because, I mean, if you think about it, right, this bronze card is playing for 11 points, 1 thinning, which is very good. But it's still a far cry when you compare it to something like Ice, which is playing for like 30 points.
Yeah, in one card.
20 points. Yeah, so in my opinion, if bronze cards are playing for like 10 plus points and gold cards are playing for 20 plus points, then that's more fair than a bronze card playing for 6 points and a gold card playing for 20 points. Because then what happens every now and then is you don't draw your gold card, you're stuck with the bronze cards, and while you're playing 6 provision cards, or not 6 provision, 6 point cards, your opponent's playing 20 point cards, and it doesn't feel so great.
No, because they just simply drew better than you. You built up the whole game, all this thought, and it's like, oh yeah, just drew a bad hand at the end, and because of the discrepancy in points, like I don't even have a shot. I'm not even in this. There's nothing creative I can do. I put on my 6-point cards, and they play ice to hit for 30 something.
Yeah, pretty much.
Feel that. Okay, that's really interesting. It's an interesting take. Then cards like Witch's Apprentice that just are published. The monster card that gets +2 if you have Sabbath and or Sabbath activated. That must feel like a step in the right direction potentially. Where it's like, okay, here's a slightly more interesting bronze card. Maybe too weak by your standards.
Is that the one is that the one that strengthens itself by 2
Yeah.
for every adjacent
every
adjacent relic?
No, it's a 4/4 Sabbath give yourself
Oh
+2.
yes, oh you're
that's probably in that line of play. Like
that one I've actually discussed a lot. I've actually discussed it with a lot of members of TLG. A lot of people don't even actually think it's all that great. I think it's pretty good in certain decks. Like I think in a V deck it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind bronze cards being like that. I don't mind strong bronze cards. Strong bronze cards, like I really want to look at bronze cards and say, okay, in the right situation, this bronze card is really good. Instead of going, okay, here's a bronze card. Well, I guess I'm gonna play it and throw it away in round 1. Just play the card, whatever, and then in round 3, mulligan, go away, get out of my hand, go away, go away, go away. I wish I could look at those bronze cards and say, you know what? I'm gonna keep this bronze card. I want it in my hand because even though it's round 3, this bronze card is gonna allow me to do this and this and this, and it's gonna play for this many points if I can do that. And then it goes, okay, so I'm actually gonna keep this bronze card because it's actually a good card. I wish it was more like that.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I like it. I like it. And hopefully they give out more. They give Northern Realms a decent bronze here this time as well. But we'll see if they keep that trend up. I feel like Syndicate's looking like they got shafted again with Bounty. But we'll find out with the new expansion. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts? We don't have to keep talking about this. Top topics.
I mean, it's so hard to evaluate cards sometimes when it's an expansion because you have to see the full card pool before you can actually like perfectly evaluate cards. And I say this as well, like the new monster card that was released says strengthen its or boost itself by or boosts its base power, increases base power by 2 for every adjacent relic. I look at the card now and I go into Gwent deck build, I type the word relic in, and I go, wow, that's bad. Because all the relics, they all do different things. One relic is a tutor, one relic is a death wish card, the next relic is a none of them make sense in the same deck. So I look at the card and go, what is this card? This card's terrible. But maybe when the full expansion release after the next couple of months, when the other parts of them add a bunch of red cards, maybe this card will be insane. So it's always very difficult to like perfectly evaluate cards without seeing the full set.
That's true. That's true. But it is going to be the cards we play with for another 2 months. But right now, but ideally, the fact that they made, for example, the one you used, they now have bronze relics cards, in the form of like Witch's Apprentice and other ones. You know, give yourself like 4 more bronze relics that are all very good. All of a sudden, card becomes much more playable.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it was a card that has. I mean, at some point, a 9 for 5 is pretty good, and then it strengthens assault, making your ghouls better. Can be a good card at some point down the line. Right now, I don't think it's very good, but that's because I just don't see any good relics right now to put in a deck like this.
Maybe friends rework.
But yeah, I do like the ideas of like this, like the Sabbath keyword, for example. I think there's a lot of things they can do with that, not just because of the expansion, but they could add it to existing cards. Like I don't know if you know what Imrith does. It's a card that says basically draw a card, consume or send one and then draw the card to game and then boost self by a card's power. And it's not really a great card. No one ever plays it. But now you can add a keyword to it to make it better. You can add a keyword like give it Sabbath. You can now use this new keyword and now make it say draw a card, discard a card if the card is a unit boost cell, blah blah blah. And then you can also say Sabbath, not draw a card, choose a card or draw any card from your deck. So now if you have that bonus category, now you can tutor any card you want. Makes the card a lot more consistent, a lot better. And you're not buffing the points of the card. You're just giving it a bonus ability that makes it more consistent, which suddenly makes this card a lot more playable. And they can use that ability on a bunch of other things. I was even having fun with the idea of the trio crones, the one that
the trio crones
consumes and then gives the other one account to. You can also do something like that with those crones and make it so that you give them Sabbath as well. And if you play one of those crones and you have Sabbath, then increase the counter of the others not by 1 but by 2 instead.
That'd be
do stuff like that.
I like that.
For instance.
I think it'd be really angry when I see Weavis was it Wispus that deals damage, comes down, it's like, oh yeah, deal 10 damage to target, but would be a lot more interesting and would also help kind of buff that middle section, so you're not necessarily dependent on the higher point gold to win games.
Yeah, I
Okay, I
think
like
I
it.
think these new keywords can definitely be used on existing cards. Like I hope that I really hope they do that though, because quite often what I don't like when they do these expansions, they add a keyword or they add a new mechanic, and they just forget about it. It becomes like a little mini gimmick to sell the expansion, and then they kind of forget about it. And then the next expansion they do a new like keyword or gimmick, and then they forget about that one. I really hope they use these keywords, especially I think a Sabbath has a lot of potential to be used in a
Yes.
lot of existing cards to make them a lot better, and I hope they use it in other cards too.
Yeah, I think the one that they're doing a good job of that in terms of rolling out is devotion. I think devotion has become, for me, one of my favorite keywords because it's like, oh, let me reward you for leaning into this keyword. You have to, I mean, if you're in devotion, it's got to all be one faction, but in return, cool stuff happens. So I am waiting, I will say, for the devotion neutral card someday. Some devotion bandit card is going to appear. Or I'll be like, this is what we've waited for our whole lives. And like, it's gonna be
That could be
so good
interesting
when
for
that
sure.
happens. Someday. So tell me, I want to hear a bit about your take as a content creator of creating something for YouTube versus Twitch, like streaming. Do you what are some different? Do you feel like there's different audiences there? So what are some considerations you do when you try to put together something for either of them?
I'm trying to keep my YouTube very informative, very much like guides and educational place, like where you can like. My goal when I make YouTube videos is that, especially like I have like series like common mistakes and advanced strategies, that someone who doesn't know how to play the game can watch these videos, and if they watch them carefully and they go through them step by step and actually watch, they should be able to become a pretty decent player if they watch them step by. 'Cause I put guides for almost every topic I can think about, common mistakes, advanced strategies, and that's my guys. So like if like as if you're a new player, right? You just start playing game. You kind of a lot of time you might ask yourself, where the hell do I start? Like what do I do? I'm playing badly. I don't know what to do. You can kind of watch streams, but it's not easy to always get like it's hard to always like follow a streamer and go, why are you doing that?
Yep.
Without like asking a question every 5 seconds and expecting the streamer to answer it all
Uh
the
huh.
time is going to be quite difficult. But so I put together a YouTube channel that obviously the goal was the main goal is just a very informative place where people can just learn. That's what it is. Just a
Uh huh.
learning environment where you can either learn a deck, you can learn how to play, learn about a mistake that people are often making, or an advanced like concept or strategy which can help improve you as a player if you are aware about these things. Because the reason why I actually made this is when I was climbing to pro ladder on my new account, on my PC
Yep.
account, I would play against people on ranked play, and they were making some very obvious mistakes, but for the most part they were playing well, but they would make one big crucial mistake that if they just had someone to tell them, by the way, that's wrong because of X, Y, and Z, I thought they'll just be so much better, because I'd watch someone play and 90% of their plays were good, but they'd make one massive big misplay at the beginning and would just lose them the whole game. And I thought, okay, well, if someone could just explain that to them, what that mistake is, they would improve as a player so much they're just aware of it. And that's why I kind of made the common mistakes like series, for example.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Even honestly, when I glanced at your channel, even I learned something really fast. I was like, oh, high tempo versus low tempo. Oh, that's a great way to think about the game. I sit here, in my mind, I was always thinking like provisions. That was kind of my cheat code for it. It was just like, all right, how committed are you really to this round? I can always click on one of your cards and be like, oh, it says 8. I know you're more committed than if you just put up 4, 4. It's like my shorthand when I was getting new to the game. But it's like, oh, high tempo versus low tempo. Oh yeah, how important is that card really? How many points is it really generating? So I see like an early Brathens, I'm like, okay, high tempo. Are they going to follow up? Do I need to answer myself? Thought it was a really good way to think about the game. And yeah.
Yeah.
And heck, I'm in it for
Uh,
chat and people watching. I'm pro rank player. If you're not, stuff. Sorry, Spyro stuff is. Do a good job.
Yeah, that video, the temper manager one, that was actually literally the video basically what the story was.
Uh huh.
Is basically I play on ladder, and some guy played this massive tempo play. He played like Cleaver, which is now actually Carlo Vassa, the card that deals one.
Uh huh.
Back in the day, it was like a red coin abuse card, and
Yeah,
like out came Roach, and he played this massive tempo play, and then I played a medium tempo play to try and get a pass, and I was like, damn, I'm gonna lose on even now. And all he needed to do was like 4 points to get ahead
uh
of me,
huh.
and he played a 3 tempo card,
Oh.
and I got a pass. I was like, cool, I'm up, bye bye. And that was the thing. To play such a high tempo card, a big commitment like that, and then
Mm-hmm.
then follow up with a low commitment play and give your opponent pass, that's like a mistake of tempo management, so to speak.
Yep.
And that's basically what inspired me. That exact game was what inspired me to like make that first video of that series, and obviously then make others.
No, and it's super good. And it's to me, it's like no wonder you're constantly getting top 60 top 16, right? Because your understanding of the game is phenomenal. And then, of course, it feeds into the casting and the competition, right? This whole series that helps build our, whole like big picture for you, right? You have your competitive mindset, and it feeds all these. I like it. So tell me a bit more about how do you view Gwent as a community? I know it seems like a bit of a weird question. It's kind of like a general topic. Do you like the Gwent community?
I mean, it's a small. I mean, I say small. It's a, how do I say, cozy community. I guess it's smaller. It's a much smaller. Like I'm used to. I'm coming from Call of Duty days. Big community. No one knows anyone. It's just random people everywhere. But the nice thing about the Gwent community is that it's you kind of know people, know names because it's smaller. It's cozier, which is nice. It's nice to be able to like look at people in chat and kind of go, oh, I know that guy from there, or I know that person. I've seen him in that chat, or blah blah blah. It's or oh, I've seen that guy on ladder. Like, you see a guy in chat, and you also play against him every now and then on ladder, and it's a much a cozier environment than like if you play. If you play like a game like League of Legends or Call of Duty, you're not gonna know anyone. Everyone's gonna be a different random person. Every person's a different random person that you don't know.
Twice ever. It's like, and I've played thousands of games. But here, you're right. Like I'll run into, especially early season, it's just like, oh, that's that streamer, that's that player. And for you, who has, of course, a higher level play, you're reducing the number of players you're playing against significantly. Like, oh, it's got to be a lot. Like, oh, I know you. We played 7 games against, past week. I'm up this many games on you. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of the things I miss about the whole like seeing your opponent's name. It's not only like it kind of takes. I don't know if you were around before. Back in the day, you could see your opponent's names and everything in Pro Ladder, which I've never been a fan of the fact that we've gone to hidden names because it kind of to me takes away the community feel of the game. It makes you feel like you're playing against just an unknown entity that's not a huge fan of it. I really miss having to see who my opponent was and go, I know that guy. Or maybe you got a little bit. Maybe you're like, oh, that guy beat me last game. I want to get my revenge. I want to win this game, or whatnot. Whereas now it's just kind of it's like you're playing against another like bot almost, and then only at the end of the game you go, oh, okay, it's that person or whatever. But I miss being able to see people's names.
That'd be cool. Give me a second. I need to take a small bathroom break. I don't know if you need to. Give me a moment.
No.
Can I? I want to hold the fort for 60 seconds. Hold the fort for 60 seconds for me, okay? 1 sec.
All right, chat. You're left with me now. You're all mine. You're all mine. All right, what's going on here? So, who is all here anyway? I haven't been paying attention to chat. Wait, let me get up my chat open. Holy crap. Okay, chat. I can actually read chat now. Nice. Want to hear a joke? Boy. All right, sure, hit me. What's the joke? What is the joke? What looks like half an orange? I don't know, an orange cut in half? I don't know. A sliced orange? The other half? Oh my god. Okay. Can someone make me a mod here so I can ban bribery? Any mods? Any mod friends want to ban bribery? Anyone? Can we get a ban here? Oh god. Oh, mod bribery? Oh no. If that happens, I might have to people exit now. There's the ban. Nice. Okay, great. Fantastic. I was asked you free. Oh no. Yep. Not gonna lie. That joke killed me. That joke may have killed me.
Did it?
You just missed yeah, I was being entertained by chat giving me some epic jokes and.
That's good. I hope they're treating you. I wish they're treating good. Chat's shooting. Yeah, I would start banning them. I'm more concerned about the mods. Hey, don't boo me. That's literally my mod. See, I say it, and instantly the mods are against me. Just awful. So you're picking back up, unless we need to run up the joke a little longer. Boo, don't boo me, chat. Anyways, so you hidden names. Do you feel like it's created a better competitive environment? It sounds like you miss the personal nature of it all.
I don't like it.
Don't like it?
I don't like it. I like seeing your opponent's names. I like having that. It feels very disconnected from me. It also feels very impersonal when you don't see who you're up against. Where you're just playing against some random entity that's there. It just doesn't. To me, it just I don't like it all. I like seeing names, but I mean it's been around for a long time. I've kind of gotten used to it, but it's something that I still to this day don't like.
Yeah, no, I guess. Yeah, I wonder about it because I always think that. So the one game I know where people like died their names is StarCraft 2. You ever watch any StarCraft 2?
Actually, I haven't watched in a long time, but I did follow a little bit of StarCraft, watch a bit of some of the games. I've never played it competitively. I played it very casually just because I played it as a kid. I really liked the lore and the story. I mostly played it for the story, but yeah, I played a tiny bit of it multiplayer, not much, but just a tiny bit.
Nice. All right, so back in I also played as a kid, not competitive. Again, it's another genre that I'm garbage at. I wish I was good at it, but it'd be like built my drone and then I died. I died. I died. Like I know that there's some genres I'm good at, and there's many I'm not. It's very much in the not category. But I know that there was basically top ranked players would try to figure out who they're playing each other on the ladder, so they can know what strategies they're practicing, what they're using and not using. But they would always have the name hidden. So what everyone would do is they'd queue up and their names would just be I's and ones. It would be this line after line after line. You could never figure out who anyone was. But in this version of it, I get to find out who the name of the person I played is. So if I'm trying to practice a secret deck or anything, I get to find out at the end, oh, Spyro has this really spicy take on Pirates Cove. I gotta look out for that next tournament. Or this particular line of play really doesn't work. Like I feel like it defeats the purpose to an extent.
I mean, I guess in StarCraft it's in StarCraft I'm not sure exactly how. So you say you can choose. I mean, if you can choose, everyone would choose. I mean, you don't want to put yourself at a competitive disadvantage by not putting it on when everyone else is putting it on. So, like, if hypothetically there was an option to choose to put it in Gwent, I would also choose to put it on or hidden, because if everyone else is going to have it on, there's no reason why I'm going to have it off because it just doesn't make sense.
Yep.
But yeah, I do miss the feeling of going, oh, it's that guy, or oh, it's hey, I queued against Spyro. Oh, I queued against that guy. Okay, cool. I'm gonna give my A game now. I wanna win this one or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But now it's kind of just another game, another random entity gonna go up against. I don't know exactly StarCraft how much the strategies or how much like I know there's like different openers and different types of ways you can play and whatnot, and I don't know enough about StarCraft to say, okay, if you know who you're up against, you can get a big advantage by knowing what strategies they typically use and blah blah. So it's hard for me to exactly compare the two, but at least in Gwent, I didn't think it was like a massive like giveaway of your opponents or whatever to know who they are.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And StarCraft is a bigger one, so what everyone would do is there was no option to, they just changed their username to be nothing. Garble.
Oh, okay.
So if they're all lines and ones and everyone's doing lines and ones, you sit there and it's probably pretty hard to figure out who it is, or at least it puts up a barrier.
Okay, I see. Interesting.
But there was an advantage of what people are doing is saying, okay, look, everybody on ladder knows I'm playing, or like the famous game was a player named Scarlet versus another player named Bomber. And Scarlet made a judgment call saying, okay, I keep running in the Bomber on ladder. I'm in a tournament setting now. I always play this way, or these are the ways I played against Bomber. Let me do something totally new because I was able to figure out his username online. So he knows what he thinks I do these 10 strategies. I'm going to throw in an 11th strategy that I've never played against him with. So it's totally fresh for him. It's a little different for Gwent, because like in Gwent, you know the names, the deck lists are published. So I do feel like you've either feel free to move to a more extreme option where there's no usernames, or just let people see each other's usernames. You already get to see what's in everyone's deck anyways. So I'm not, this is less of a surprise.
To be fair, when it comes to tournaments anyway, you play on open deck lists. So in the end of the day, when it comes to the highest competitive level of Gwent, there's you're playing on open deck lists regardless. So I don't really hate the idea of even getting the slight sense of knowing what my opponent's name is or what they might be playing, because if I'm playing against them on a tournament, I'm gonna know exactly what they're playing anyway. So you should probably be used to having your opponents know what you're playing, because when it comes to competitive tournaments, you're gonna have to be in an environment where your opponent knows exactly what you're playing regardless.
Feels like a weird feature. Actually, the more I think about it, the weirder it is. Like, oh, you can't know the username while you're playing, but as soon as you're done, you know exactly who you just beat or was beaten by, right? Like, feels like it's a weird middle ground that doesn't serve a significant role.
I mean, it's a bit. There's two. There's been two. I mean, back when this thing happened, there were two sides. I'm kind of like giving up with this whole debacle because when it was released, some people liked it, some people didn't like it. It's kind of just at this point, it's kind of just whatever, and just I guess have to accept it. I suppose.
I guess so. So question: do you think, like, if you could make, let me figure out how I want to ask. The Gwent always feels like to me a smaller game. Do you hope it continues to blow up? Do you feel like that should be the drive of the game?
I'd love. I mean, I would love for it to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Does feel like there's like this almost like this invisible wall that stops it from going further, but I'm not sure what it would need to go past that like wall barrier. But I would love it if Gwent was like a big game like Hearthstone or whatever. I mean, I know it kind of contradicts what I said earlier about liking the small community feel, but as a content creator, obviously the bigger the community, the more beneficial anyway. So
yeah. Do you ever feel
kind
like
of would be nicer?
Nice. If you had to stream any other game besides Gwent, do you have one that you would like in the back pocket you consider? Would we go back to Call of Duty or at the same time it's just not
I don't think I would be that good. I haven't played Call of Duty in years. I would probably be maybe above average at best at this point. I'd have to like I spent years and years playing like 8 hours a day every day to practice, and I don't think I could just get that back in over a day or two. So I'm not sure. I wish if I could magically transfer Gwent knowledge into another game, I would love to like know chess very well. I really would. I know how to play chess. I don't know how to play chess well. I know the rules. That's about it. No. But I would really like to know how to play chess well. Unfortunately, that also takes years and years and years to play it at a very high level. So I can't exactly do that. But I wish I did. I wish I could.
Oh, it's a cool game. My chat has asked me a number of times to play it, and actually a lot of times when I'm streaming, usually chat's like, "Oh, do you want to play Gwent?" The other thing they were asking each other is, "Hey, do you guys want to play chess?" And just go, like John just plays Gwent in the background. It's really interesting chess. But I love I grew up with that game. I've never been ranked, so I don't know if I'm good or not. I'm probably not. I would like to think I am the competitive person in me. I don't know if you feel this about games, like, oh, I've got to be above average. Get that little, that scratch until you get to prove it. You're like, of course I'm above average until chips are down, hands are open. But it's amazing. It's also amazing how much it's blown up on Twitch, where it went from a really wait. Say that one more time. Chess.
Did you say chess? Yeah. Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't followed it much on Twitch, but.
Fascinating. So it was this it actually reminds me a lot of Gwent, which is what gives me some optimism about the future of Gwent, where you kind of like a core streaming community, kind of smallish. Major tournament occurs and the community spikes in viewers, right? So when we're about to see it in June, if you look at Masters, I bet you're going to see 10+K people watching, at least 9K, right?
We've had more than that. We've had a lot more than that in the past. We've had big. The tournament scenes used to have a lot more viewers, but kind of been slowly trickling down. I don't know why, but yeah.
Yeah, so then what happened in chess is eventually, I think it was Hikaru came along, I believe that's his name, and he was the perfect storm. What is his name?
Hikaru.
Hikaru came along, and it was the perfect storm, the right amount of entertainment with raw skill, and then put it together and it exploded as a category. So I feel like low key as just a content creator, Gwent's in that similar place. It might need a esports restructuring to add more tournaments, less qualifiers. That would be my outside point of view, not a competitor, but qualifiers happen.
The qualifiers are there to try, and the reason why the qualifiers exist is back in the day it was to qualify as tournaments is pretty much mostly coming from ladder only.
Yep.
And there was a lot of friction between players, and the thing about ladder is you have to play a lot of games to usually get those. If you look at ladder, now obviously there's gonna be exceptions. There will be players every now and then. There'll be someone with a very high win rate and a very low amount of games relative to other players. But generally speaking, most players, on the top end of ladder, play a lot of games every month, a lot, and there might be some people that don't have the time to go for top spots. They might be decent. They might be maybe almost as good as someone that's ranked like top 10 or something. But they're working a job. They play like only an hour or two every day or so, and they can only play like 200 something games a month. So they have no chance of getting into Gwent Open or whatever. So the qualifiers are kind of there to give those people a chance. The top 64s to say, okay, if you're good at the game, you might not be able to get a top spot on ladder, but you can at least qualify through the tournament. And that was what the point of the qualifiers were. And I kind of liked it because honestly, like, unless you play a lot of Gwent, you're probably not going to be within the top 8 players to qualify for tournaments otherwise.
Do you feel like, for me, again, this is I'm more the viewer here, not the competitor. There's so many qualifiers going on because it happens every month, and then you have the Open, and then it goes on. It just feels like when there's a major tournament in Gwent, you get the viewership that really could take Gwent from a smaller community to a really big deal. And I feel like if I was going to grow the esports in the game, I'd be trying to focus on creating more of those spikes as opposed to a lot of little tournaments and getting it once or twice a year.
I mean, back in the day with qualifiers, people weren't. There were always for a long time. There were always qualifiers. Basically, the difference was back then there were more spots given for ladder and less for qualifiers. I think real difference is now there's a lot more people streaming the qualifiers. Back in open beta days, there were very few streamers streaming the open. Like, almost no one was streaming the open. The qualifiers, most of the streamers didn't really participate. They were mostly playing ladder and just they weren't like actual like high competitive players. So the qualifiers system is still mostly the same. It's just there's more spots now actually all the spots are for qualifiers. So there are, because there used to be top 50 and top 100 qualifier. Now there's top 64 and top 16. So there were 2 qualifiers. Now there's more qualifiers because there's more spots for qualifiers. Whereas before it used to be like half qualifiers, half ladder and stuff like that, or some kind of structure like that. But yeah, I like qualifiers because it gives you a chance to, even if you aren't having enough time to play like 1 million games a month, you can at least compete. And the thing is, I think it's important is if you're playing on Pro Ladder, if you're on Pro Ladder and you kind of think if your only way to qualify for tournaments is finish top 8, you're gonna say, what's the point? You're gonna say, I can't do that. I'm not even gonna try. But if you finish top 64, you can play in a qualifier, which could get you to there. Then you go, okay. Well, I could try top 64, and it gives people motivation. It gives you something to aim towards. But if they said only top 8, then pretty much everyone on Pro will go, well, I'm out. Not even gonna try. Bye bye.
Do you think that top 64 is inclusive enough, or would you ever consider, in your opinion, the value in expanding it, not decreasing it, but expanding, going further the other way?
It would be cool to have more, but there's a problem, is that it's already very long and very tiring for the players, and adding more players would only make it longer and make it more tiring for the players. So whilst I would like it to be more inclusive, I would kind of like to see it being 100 players. I kind of don't want to see it being 100 players just because of the fact that I don't want to play in these qualifiers for an extra like 2 hours because it's really tiring to play in these qualifiers. So it's kind of like a bit of a mixed bag. I would like more, but I also don't want more because it's already too long.
Yeah. So how do you keep your focus? Because you've been able to. You mentioned very early in our conversation taking a textbook to a Call of Duty tournament so you could study for a major exam. Now the darkness has come. Now take your time. You can turn on light.
Beautiful feature of South Africa is we get load shedding, so our power just gets cut randomly. I've been inverted to back up the power for my computer only, but
if you need to go, it's all good. We can always end it here if you want.
That's what the battery's for. My battery's here to keep the computer going.
All right, should I just kill my lights a little bit, kind of be in spirit with you, go into like the a little it feels like shutting off the lights, getting good. This is the juicy stuff, right?
Dark stream now.
Dark stream. I'll go with the light for now. It's fine. Your computer light is pretty good. Let's see. Where's it gonna? Competitive mindset. So how do you deal with that? You're under a lot of pressure when you're going game after game after game.
Difficult. So hard. Tournaments by the last couple of rounds, it becomes just a battle of who can keep their focus the longest. Because at that point, everyone's misplaying. Everyone's playing. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating. Not everyone's misplaying, but it's really hard to keep your focus that long. So many times I'll play a qualifier and like in the last game or so, I'll play like a complete potato because I'm just dead inside. I'm like, I just want to go. I'm tired. I just want to stop. It's really hard to stay focused that long. I don't know how everyone does it. I know I struggle with it as well because it's just an endurance battle at that point.
Sounds like it almost adds eventually a second layer of the game. Like it's not just can you be good at Gwent? It's can you be good at Gwent and maintain it over game after game after game, not just like throwaway ladder games where you can keep playing, you always get it back, but then when it counts, it really counts, and the qualifiers open.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Have you read? God, what's the name of the book? Oh, come on. That's just someone. There was a really good.
I'm gonna stop you right there. You said, "Have I read?" The answer is probably no, because I
Ooh.
don't like to read.
Well, there is a book for you. Well, if you wanna dig into that topic, there's a book. If you're interested, you just let me know off the stream. You don't have to tell me now. We'll take offense if you don't reach out. But there's a book about a former chess player who wanted to not only be a top chess player in the world, but also top in a very specific martial art. Both, of course, top level hyper competitive environments. And he talked a lot about the competition. Take your time. All right, his headphones are off. Quickly, guys, quickly. How's everyone doing? I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. I'm having a good time.
Sorry. Yeah.
No worries, Spyro. Is everything all right?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Don't worry.
All right. Then it's just a book written by somebody who's gone to the peak of chess as well as a martial art, and just talking a lot about focus, how he maintained, what he did, how it feels constantly, focus so often on stuff and kind of get worn down. I don't know. It might be a book for you. Might not be a book if you're not much of a reader, and also time is always a brutal
reading
thing.
is always the time. Reading is a time-consuming one for sure.
That it is. What do you do for free time and like for fun?
Right now there's not really much free time, but when I do have time, I do kind of like to sometimes play some other games if I have some time. Right now there hasn't been many good games that have come out recently. I'm not really a huge fan of what games come out, but there are some nice games, like for example Resident Evil, whatnot. If I'm not streaming, I do kind of like to just relax and play a game or something while in my free time, or watch a movie or whatnot, just typical kind of stuff.
Do you have a guilty pleasure game you like playing off stream? Like one you just go back to and you're like, this feels.
Not really go back to. I like single player games. I either play one game multiplayer. If it's a multiplayer game, it's probably going to be competitive. Everything else is going to be single player. I don't really go back to one. I play it, I finish it, and I go, okay, that was a good game, and then I move on to the next one if there's another new one to come to.
Interesting. Do you have a favorite game of all time? And that's
probably The Last of Us or Red Dead Redemption 2. Those two are very much my two favorites, I would say. Don't know which one between the two I would say is better, but those two are quite.
Okay, I was gonna say, and that's why it makes sense that you're excited for Horizon Zero Dawn's expansion. Then you seem to have a genre you like.
It's an RPG. It's an open world game. It's also got a very good story. I like story-driven games quite a bit.
Nice. Now I hear really good things. I've not played out of those games, but I've heard nothing but praise for both of them. So, on my list of things I should eventually get around to doing. Wow. Okay, let me see. Let me check my questions real quick. What else did I want to ask you about? If you weren't streaming, what else would you do? Because you have options, right? And it might just be you don't know.
I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty good at writing. I've also been quite interested in project management as well. Or just own honestly, probably if I could do something else, probably own my own business. I would like to just I don't like working for other people. I prefer to own my own business ideally. So I would probably try have some kind of business going, but yeah, that's obviously difficult to say what kind of business or what exactly, but yeah.
Gotta try things until it works. But now it goes back to the competitive nature. As well as I think you mentioned very early on, really reaping the rewards of your work. You work a ton, might as well reap the rewards instead of handing it over at the end of the day to somebody else. Spend extra time, they get the reward.
Yeah, pretty much.
Makes sense. And do you have any other things you really want to mention to the community? I confess, we've gone through all of my topics that I've initially prepared. I don't see anything else. We've covered a lot. Do you have any topic? Feel free.
Not really. I think that's pretty much covered about everything, I think. At least from my understanding.
Awesome. So then let's pivot over to mods. If you want to send me to the mod channel on the Discord, I'll check on my phone. Questions for Spyro? We'll get down to business of that. see. I got a Google Doc link, and let's see what chat has for you.
All right.
I'll give you an easy one off the bat. How tall are you?
193 centimeters.
Nice. As an American,
Quite tall.
I wish I knew what that meant. No. You're good.
It means very tall. It means almost 2 meters.
Nah, okay, perfect. I can work on that. 6'4". Oh man, you're taller than me. I thought I was doing good. See, that's good. What has helped you stay engaged with Gwent for so long? I know a lot of people are burning out all the time when playing this game.
My experience in not being burnt out in Call of Duty for like several years of playing like 8 hours a day, I'm used to it.
Grinding
Takes a lot.
Built up the muscle, so to speak.
Yeah, I've got a very high mental fortitude of being able to avoid burnout, so to speak.
All right, next. How many questions? Okay, we got. Okay, good. Actually, we were good. We should really get from most. Who are you rooting for in Gwent Masters?
Who do I what?
In the Gwent Masters tournament, do you have a favorite player?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to bet against, for example, Tailbot. I'm also very much interested in seeing how Kulamone performs, and also Game King. I would say my 3 favorites going to that one. I'm curious to see all those. How they end up going out against each other. Game King, Kulamone, and Tailbot. I'm quite curious to see how those play out.
Makes sense. I'm assuming you've played against all these players before on ladder and such.
Yeah, for sure. Quite often. That's the thing. Quite often. I mean, I know some people played very different time zones. Like, for example, I remember one time I was doing like a subathon, and I remember queuing against Kulamone and Atskov like 4 times at 4 a.m. And I was like, what are these guys doing up at 4 a.m.? Sometimes people played very funny time zones. But yeah, you do often play against the same people over and over, so.
Yeah, and then makes your insight even better into the tournament because you know what people really are playing. Do you think Life Coach has a shot or Freddy Babes? I don't think they play as much as the rest.
I mean, Freddy has definitely been practicing quite a bit. He was even in the qualifiers last month, and he made it to day 2. So I'm not sure about Life Coach though. He's been away for a long time. So it's definitely he's having a like crash course learning the game. I'm not sure how much he can cram that sort of time, but we'll have to see. Freddy, though, I think is a little bit more. He's been around for more recently and been around for a bit more into Homecoming, so he's hasn't to learn as much as quickly. But Life Coach definitely has it up against him, where he's got a lot to learn in a very short amount of time. So we'll have to see how he manages to do that.
All right, next question. So somebody wanted to know a little bit more. I'm going to try to rephrase it, but there's a difference probably between, or there might not be, between when you're streaming and who you are off stream. How do you balance it, or is it all just the same?
Pretty much the same. Honestly, I've tried not having any kind of persona or any acting. Pretty much what you see on stream is pretty much me. I'm pretty much the same person.
Nice. Hey, I like it. I respect it. I personally do the same thing myself. So I turned down my language on. Keep it pretty PG, right, chat? So what's your long-term goal of being a streamer?
I mean, just grow to the point where I don't have to. I would like to eventually be at a point where I don't have to constantly be online all the time, where I can kind of go, yeah, you know what, I feel like taking today off, and it's not gonna hurt me, and I don't mind. I'm just gonna go take this day off, and I'm gonna take that day off, and you know what, today I don't feel like streaming, so I'm gonna take this day off. That's the point where I'd eventually like to be. Right now, it's very hard to do that because financial reasons and whatnot, but at some point I would like to be at that point where I can just go, yep, you know what, I'm not gonna stream, or tomorrow, you know what, I'm gonna stream. Maybe I'm not gonna even stream Gwent, I'm gonna stream this game. I'm just gonna take a chill day and do whatever. That would be quite nice.
I realize
be able to grow to that point.
That would be really nice, because it is a lot of work. Streaming, it's brutal. It's a job and a half at minimum.
Yeah, pretty much.
In Gwent, is there an archetype you want to bring back? I'm assuming more cloggers. You're a big fan of it.
No, absolutely not. Honestly, I really liked I really like Great Swords from Overmate. I know a lot of people did not like Great Swords from Overmate, but I liked it. I really like Great Swords. We kind of have Great Swords in a way between Priest and Armored Drakar, but they're not quite the same. I don't think we're ever going to get it back, but because it's kind of overpowered archetype. But I really enjoyed it. Oh, actually, no, I take it back. There's one I would like to bring back that people won't hate as much. Nilfgaard Spies. That was a very high skill, very interesting archetype. They tried bringing it back, but what we have now is just not quite what we had in the past. I really wish we could get like old Nilfgaard Spies back in all its glory.
That would be awesome. All right, I like it. I like it. Hopefully they bring it back. They're trying to. I mean, I'm waiting for Dagon. Unfortunately, I'm from a lame people sitting there. It's not for me. It's not a meme. It's a necessity. I need the Dagon back in my life. I miss the days I click bring out fog. All my foglets come out. I play my woodland spirit. All the foglets come out again.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an iconic one for sure. I think most people kind of want to see Dagon return.
Yeah, that's quickly becoming the newest meme. So next question. I don't know if this is true, but you would know potentially. Somebody asked, why do you think South Africans are more proportionally represented in Gwent than in other games?
Not sure how true that is. I know. In, for example, CS:GO, we had. I don't know how. I don't follow. Again, I don't follow many other games, but I know South Africa had a pretty good CS:GO team. I believe they won like DreamHack in India at one point. The team, the South African team. So we have or had pretty good CS:GO players. We have some pretty good Call of Duty players as well. Not sure have or had. We've had some pretty good Call of Duty players in the past as well. But yeah, it's obviously not going to be every game. Some games South Africa you'll never hear a South African name. Some games there may be some South Africans. Depends on the game, I think.
All right. Yeah, I wish I didn't know offhand the demographics, but hopefully that question asked was correct. Here's one that
it's not a big community. South Africa is definitely a smaller one, but there are some games that they're pretty good in.
Here's one that's easy for you, I think. Is your logo a Komodo dragon? And if so, why did you choose that logo?
2 reasons. One, the PogChamp ball, the current PogChamp emote. I used to love that emote. I would spam that emote all the time. 2, I live very close to a swamp, which means a lot of mosquitoes, which means a lot of geckos and lizards all over. So if I go outside my house and I look on the walls, you will see little geckos everywhere.
That's awesome.
And yeah, that's kind of where the logo came from.
Nice. I don't think I would like the mosquitoes, but I do think geckos are pretty awesome.
Yeah, mosquitoes are there to try keep control of the mosquito or the gecko population.
Yeah, no, they're like little mini fly swatter. Run around, they deal with the bugs for you, and they're probably nicer than spiders. Their choice. Here's a more general one as a streamer for you. How did your interaction with viewers evolve as your channel size grew, and how do you handle interacting with so many viewers at a time?
I must say, the bigger the channel gets, the more kind of differences you see in chat, and sometimes obviously those differences aren't going to be quite the most pleasant, but it can be difficult. It's actually one of the more difficult challenges of a streamer. Is like the bigger the chat gets, the more difficult it is to like kind of handle everything and everyone. I'm not sure. Dealing with it is honestly just ask mods to try be stricter. I guess that's kind of how I've dealt with it.
Do you feel like you lose a bit of that personal interaction with so many people there?
Yeah, I mean, it's much harder to read all the comments chats in the beginning. Obviously, you would be able to read every single comment in chat because it was easy to do. But nowadays, it's very hard to read everything because on average, I think every stream is about 5,000 messages I get in chat. So there's no way I can read 5,000 different messages every day. So you obviously lose out on some of that.
That's pretty. Yeah, that's a lot. And it's gotta be tough. Mods can crack down on the hard, the people who are bad actors, but it's gotta be extra difficult to try to connect with each individual person. Because when you start off, when you have like 10 viewers, it's like, oh yeah, I know, I can name every person by name in the chat, and then it starts to come less and less and less.
Yeah, pretty much. It becomes much harder as time goes on.
Okay, I'm gonna skip a couple questions here or there that are very closely related to the game, so I don't just keep grilling you. Let's try to wrap up some of the other ones that are a bit more unique. Because also, guys, why not all guys? Got the podcast, super good. But what are you trying to do to stand out amongst all the other Gwent Twitch streamers? Because it's clearly you're very successful at that. Or also another way to phrase it would be, how do you build your brand?
I try most time just be myself. I don't want to try, obviously, be someone I'm not and try like put on a persona or whatnot. It's I don't do anything really specifically, honest. I kind of just be myself and just try play as well as I can. Also try be educational slash informative while at the same time also, not too robotic and not too stiff. I kind of want to just also either have fun or just be myself and also try at the same time also provide an environment that I can try teach people and let them watch and be able to like go, okay, I understand why he's explaining quite well and blah 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 whatnot.
Nice. Sounds like it requires a lot of thought on your part in terms of really crafting how it's gonna be. Then you have the added complexity of getting bigger and bigger, which feels like you almost lose a bit of control. It's a tough thing to balance.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm gonna wrap it up with one final question here, which is, what made you? So a lot of people are asking about Gwent and like your love of Gwent. Like, what keeps you to this game? What has endeared you to Gwent? You've gone through a lot of changes.
I really like the I really like I said, I really like the core concept of the game, the 3-round system, the managing of resources, the knowing when to pass. That I really like about the game. And there really isn't any other card game that I know of, at least, that has that kind of system or feature, at least not to the extent that Gwent does. Also the fact that there's not really much else that it's kind of like at this point I don't really feel like I want to learn a whole be competitive in a game. It takes time. Like you got to learning a game from scratch is kind of exhausting, and I haven't really felt compelled to like try learn any other game from scratch like I have with Gwent. So for the time being, it's kind of just also the community, knowing the community, participating in tournaments, being able to like teach people and help them get better is definitely a motivating factor. Being able to know that I can help people learn the game really does. It's quite nice when someone says like, okay, for example, like, hey, I just started playing the game for the last month or whatnot, and your guides or whatever or your streams have helped me get to pro rank, and I'm like, okay, great, that's great. That means you're learning something. It means at the end of the day, I've done my job, and you are able to take something away from the stream and improve your gameplay.
Awesome. That's super good. It also shows how much like it may not shows, but like it's always awesome when you have an impact on somebody. You're like, your life is better because of something I did. This kid's like, I put together a guide, I taught you how to play Gwent. Now you're not sitting there hating the game, you know what's going on. And the community grows a little bit further, which seems to be underlying everything you do, that core thing. As you're competitive in all aspects, you're driving this constant growth, improving the game. All these different.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess, Spyro, is there anything else you want to say? This is your time to tell the world.
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much everything that I can think of as well. I think you guys asked quite an extensive array of questions, so I think you got it.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. I hope I got it. Again, Spyro, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I was actually shocked. I was like, well, I'll ask. Can't hurt. But here we are, and I'm truly grateful. Really appreciate it.
No problem. It was fun being here. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, thanks for making the time for me. And I guess this is the moment where it's kind of like we have to find an awkward way to end this. So
we go smile and wave, I guess.
Smile and wave. That's it, right? Everyone smile and wave, smile and wave. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to Pamzosaurus and Ahmed Ali for all their support on Patreon.